So in the framework of this work, we're speaking not only about that the cash and the turnover of the cash will be decreasing in the country, how it influences our business. We know that last year the regulator issued the project, thanks to which the share of non-cash calculations should go up 50% because it's too expensive for Ukraine to have the certain cash turnover. It was about 1.3 billion of hryvnia worth to our country. So the things we are discussing now, not only the decrease of the cash turnover, not how only the business will react on that and why business wants to decrease this turnover because the cash is cheaper for the business but makes business non-transparent, but we will speak how the business as it is goes online together with all the procedures, how it interacts online with the state, with the regulators, with its partners and clients, with the consumers, with its internal services, and how it influences the economy. So undoubtedly you will mention several e-commerce zones as the quintessence of the business in the internet. We'll look how it develops, how it grows, and the experts are saying that up till the end of this year, the zone will grow for 30 to 40%, up to 55 million hryvnia. So today at our panel discussions, we have experts in fintech zone, the owners and the bosses in the greatest business in the e-commerce. So I will introduce our speakers and then I will ask them to tell us more about their companies. Vyacheslav Klymov, co-owner of Nova Poshta and president of non-governmental organization SUP. Mykola Palienko, co-founder and CEO of EVO.company. Svyatoslav Komakha, CEO of the company Portmoney.com. Denis Zakharenko, marketing and sales director at Ukrtelecom. Sergei Francisco, director for business development of the MasterCard in Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia and Central Asia countries. And Ilja Laurs, chairman of the venture capital fund Nextury Ventures, Lithuania. Thank you. So if I may, a couple of words about you and the company for our beautiful listeners and viewers, so more about our business. Vyacheslav, please. Hello, respected colleagues. In short, about the company of Nova Poshta, I'm a co-founder on it, the Observatory Trustee Board. So today we have a little fewer than 2,500 subsidiaries all over Ukraine, departments all over Ukraine. We had more than 110 millions of parcels, so I think that in 2017 this figure will be 40% more. More than 23,000 of employees. The huge automobile park, 41 distribution center, the delivery all over Ukraine, and as we are here to speak about the cashless and maybe certain characteristics of the network from the point of view of cashless, more than 3,500 post terminals and 7,000 of RRO in the company. If we're speaking about cashless, it's one of the maybe not so many examples of the wide business which is working in logistics. Thank you. Thank you, Nikolai. Hello, my name is Nikolai Palienko. I'm the CEO of EVO.company, the group of companies, and co-founder. 10 years ago, we dealt with sailing grants. Lots of you are our clients. You're either selling or buying something, both in sites Shafar and Kabanchik. So 3 years ago, we decided to create marketplace with the state. We helped the state to make the system of state procurements according to the zones. But the main business is the e-commerce. So we are about a bit more than a million of orders a month. It's an enormous figure. We are growing approximately 40 to 50% a year with all the rest of e-commerce. As for the topic of today's panel discussion, we are dealing for 10 years. We have the offline business coming to online. That's why I'm here. Thank you. Hello. My name is Svyatoslav Komakha. I am the CEO of the company Portmoney.com. Portmoney.com is the biggest independent service of online payments and transfers of money. This year we're having 15 years of celebration. So for 15 years we provide online payments for Ukrainians, for Ukrainian businesses, and we are responsible in this ecosystem for the cashless part, because all of the payments we're taking them with the help of the cards. Visa, MasterCard, we're taking them with the help of the bank accounts, so we're totally cashless. Our business consists of two parts, which is our peculiarity. The first one is B2C trend, so we are the marketplace payment of the regular payments in our service. You can pay any account of yours, beginning with the communal to the insurance, the state fines, the taxation, the education, all of that is online and of course cashless. The second trend is the solution of payments online is given to thousands of dealers of communal enterprises and state and commercial, which understand that it's an important way of getting payments for their clients. According to statistics, we serve more than 3 million unique users and private people a year through our partners every month. So we serve approximately 4 million transactions which are cashless. And we have more than 2,000 direct and non-direct businesses whom we serve with that. Thank you. Thank you, Denis. Hello. My name is Denis Zakharenko. I'm the Marketing and Sales Director and B2C Director of Ukrtelecom. The company of Ukrtelecom is a national operator of communications. We give maybe hundreds of names of services of communications, but the biggest is fixed telephony, the internet. We're having 1.5 million of subscribers of internet, the biggest amount in the country. We're bringing internet to the villages. Recently 2,000 of villages were covered by the internet service thanks to us. Besides that, besides old school services like telephony, we're giving new services for the corporate clients. This is the anti-DDoS attacks and cloud technologies, the data centers and so on. The topic of cashless for us is a perspective, an interesting one. We're doing a lot in this sphere because we give the service according to the paid model. So use it now and pay later. So millions of clients need monthly to have an account put, and then they have to see for those accounts to be paid. So if the clients had a testament to pay just into the cash, we want this to be changed. We want the people to pay more in the card, by the cards, and to pay in time, because the debtor, and if you decrease for 2 days, for instance, the time when the payment is done, the company saves and it earns a lot of money for that. Ilya, please. Hello, my name is Ilya Laurs. My professional activities has 2 chapters. The first one is the history of entrepreneurship, which I created in Lithuania and scaled it in the Silicon Valley. The company which has 9 figures in the sum. It's being funded by the servers and tigers. So before Android we had 95% of Nokia, BlackBerry and so on, and I've sold all of that in 2014. I created the Venture Foundation. My tool for today is the Venture Capital Fund and investments into new technologies. This foundation is acting into 4 verticals at the national level of Lithuania. We are working first of all at the level of the state, and again in all of the segments we are closely working with the financial technologies. Secondly, at the academic level, how the universities should be commercialized and turned into all of the intellectual property they are having into the real technologies of the real companies. And of course those are so-called corporate investment verticals when we are working in the tandem with the traditional businesses. Those are insurance, telecom, banking. When we are creating innovation centers, as for accelerators, incubators, innovation funds, and so on. And of course, the community of entrepreneurs as startups and companies which will try to implement all those technologies. So today we deal with that, including Ukraine, pro-ecosystems, because in the modern world, just to broadcast the new technologies into economic effects at the level of one organization is impossible. This is the product of the whole ecosystem of the systematic approach. So our thesis, when this is a small country like Lithuania, it can be very efficient. So it turned out that fintech is the subject of specializations and innovations on the level of Lithuania. If we compare the financial sector with the financial sector of the US, we will catch up and be ahead of 20 years. The magnet cards were dominating last year. Still 70% of payments are going through the magnet card, and as a contrast, 75% of transactions in Lithuania are direct links. So this segment is interesting in Lithuania both for us professionally, and it's really well developed in Lithuania, so I think it would be very interesting to share my experience. Thank you. Sergey. Hello. My name is Sergey Francisco. I'm the director for the business development of the MasterCard in Ukraine. We are the global company. We're working in almost 200 countries and more with 20,000 banks all over the world. This is our business, to interconnect the banks between them, and for you, like card owners, where you can see the logo of MasterType, you can pay and work on. And the majority of banks which are acting in Ukraine are members of our paying system. What can I say? Cashless is our business. So this is where I can see the discussion will be more and more interesting. Yes, all the interests and all the operators of the market are represented here and who are actively using this business. Let's look at the figures. Vyacheslav, you are having certain data about the market you're serving, so it's very demonstrative. It would be nice if you would share it with us. Esteemed colleagues, I have an honor to speak about, or to present about the e-commerce figures. Well, in fact, it is understandable and totally explainable, because Nova Poshta is in fact the pump or the heart of Ukrainian logistics system, including and the part of e-commerce. In this or that way, we don't have the internet shop or an internet project which is not working with us. There is Nikolai Palienko with us, who is one of our favorite clients. So I will show you the figures we are feeling as for the market. I will go a bit ahead and I will speak about some of the trends. Maybe I will begin this discussion in this way. So, what is online for the economy and why we're speaking about that at all? We used to live without being online some way for long centuries and years. First of all, of course, this is an easy access to the information. This radically changes the landscape of the consuming of the economy as it is. So, honestly speaking, what we see if we ask the question, what's the main driver of such growth of e-commerce in Ukraine, when e-commerce is really growing for 40 to 50% a year? Well, besides the driver, the growth of the consuming is undoubtedly the migration from the classic offline, from the classic retail into online. This migration And this easiness, with the help of which the consuming is going on in e-commerce, is the driver itself a driver of consuming. Because as soon as the consumer, it's easier to buy for the consumer, he begins to buy more. So this is one of the key ideas which unites all of the participants of this panel. Around e-commerce, like an industry, there is a very big, I would say, with a kind of interconnection, or I will speak with aviation language, which is dressings of services and infrastructures which provide the work of the e-commerce. Those are the payment services, those are the procurements, those are logistics. Mainly, this is the express delivery. I can say that I'm very proud that our company had an enormous influence in the development of e-commerce, because when we came somewhere and made a delivery, instantly there were internet shops emerging or internet projects for which there was a special infrastructure, like in the Wild West, when the US just emerged, how it went on. At first, they tried to take away the Indians, then they had the railroad, and instantly this railroad had the whole infrastructure of businesses and so on. The similar situation is with e-commerce in Ukraine. As soon as the logistics infrastructure emerged, as soon as the payment infrastructure emerged, instantly internet projects have begun developing of a very different format. Undoubtedly, the huge role of online is communication. There was a very interesting interview recently with Mark Zuckerberg, who was accused by Trump. So Trump accused Facebook that Facebook is against Republicans and Trump. And Mr. Zuckerberg said that the liberal part of America considers him to be enemy too, but the answer was that this is just the playground, the ground where everybody can express his or her opinion. There is no Facebook or any other social networks or any other communicational platforms. They can't, according to their notion, to be pro someone or against someone. They are open grounds. So the landscape of the communication has been changing dramatically. And of course, the most different various startups are being created now which drive the economy. What will go on further on? Well, of course, we heard the word ecosystem here. It's impossible to have internet shops, e-shops, or express delivery or the payment system as it is separately. The whole ecosystem is functioning, which are in a very close integration to each other and which can't survive without each other, and so they create synergy. Besides certain consumers, things online will give an opportunity, and already is giving an opportunity to communicate with the state. Undoubtedly, it will lead to the very quick and rapid development of the cloud technologies and everything which is connected with the data, with information. It will grow in the geometrical progression. And of course, there will be a simplification of life. Our life will become easier and easier thanks to online. Ideally, we will come to the solutions, one-click solutions, with the help of which we will do everything. What now? First of all, about Ukraine. Ukraine is in top 3 of the most dynamically developing markets of e-commerce in Europe. In this case, this is a good piece of news because we are in the epicenter of the development. We're radically changing the customs of the consuming. In Ukraine already, if, for instance, you are in the underground in Shanghai or Hong Kong, you will see that 90% of the people there are going there leaning and doing something in their gadgets. 90%, it's not a metaphor. It would be interesting to show you the video, but it is like that. I checked it. That is why whole life of a human being is coming more and more, not only into online, but into mobile world. There they buy things and stuff. There you can have communication with the state, with your house, with your family. Everything is in your cell phone. So there are radical increases of the sales through the social networks. My colleagues will improve what are the limitations of the Kontakte influence the sales of all of the internet projects in Ukraine. Of course, it's a good piece of news that any limitations we want from the political point of view, of course it's evil, but still indirectly it improved the power of the channel of sales through the social networks. And of course, undoubtedly there is a good piece of news that Ukrainian consumer is becoming more and more capricious, he is claiming more, and that is why he'll make us change. This is our place on the map of e-commerce. I think that it would be difficult to see Ukraine from the furthest rows with its 1.4 billion, especially when we compare with some giants, for instance 60 billion in Germany, and we're having an increase of tempo of e-commerce all over the world. We need to say that from 30 to 40% of growth of e-commerce are, in my opinion, the figures are very cautious, because in reality it seems to me, I would say all of the 50%, let's be frank, we have the shadow market there. Still, the share of e-commerce in the whole part of retail in Ukraine is just minor. 3% now, it used to be 2%. In the developed countries, it's 10 to 15%. Mykola yesterday showed the data about China, it's 19%, right? 19% is the online share for the whole retail in China. Undoubtedly, it's the future which we can't stop. This is what we'll have soon. I will tell again that a substantial part of this feast is Nova Poshta, which has the growth of the deliveries in online for online is approximately 50%. This is for 2015 and 16, and this year we have the same dynamics. To be short about the cashless, what we see here, up to 38% is the increase of cashless payments in Ukraine in the first quarter of 2017, 5% increase of Ukrainians who buy online abroad, and those are only cashless transactions. The quantity of amounts grew for 28%. They're growing in the bulk. I'm speaking about cashless now. And these are the figures which sometimes can, on the one hand, they can speak about the underdevelopment, and on the other hand, about the perspective. About 30% of the all of the payments are taken with the help of the banking card. They refill the card of the seller. and only or 24% of the internet shop they don't give you opportunity to pay with the card, and approximately 57% of the buyers are ready to have a pre-payment if they are sure in the reputation of the e-shop, internet shop, or if they are sure that the goods will be delivered and they will buy something. I can explain those figures as so far distrust both to the internet and distrust to cashless payments. Still, I need to emphasize that for me, a person who knows how online is working abroad, I must say that online and cash are totally in different planets. They can't be compatible. Of course, we have payments with the help of the cash, both in the civilized countries, in Germany, for instance, and so on, but this is a pro-client driven. But the payments, I'd say, until part of the Ukrainian e-commerce will be in the black money or black cash, I say it would be one of the powerful anchors which won't let it develop. What obstacles do we see? First of all, there is not enough of the legislation base for the market. To the large extent, e-commerce is still not only in the gray zone, but in the zone of vacuum of the legislation. There is the law about the e-commerce, which has a very framework format. It doesn't answer a single question about how it lives, how e-commerce is working now. We need to work upon that, and the same situation is at the market of payments, especially what we say fintech is. In fact, this is the zone which is very regulated, and regulated by the tools of National Bank of Ukraine, which is maybe closer to the banking market, but doesn't have anything in common with the realities of the 21st century, when PayPal, Alipay, and so on are the legislators of those fashion. Of course, this is the shadow of the national economy. This problem didn't go away. I'm not even sure that we have the great dynamics, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we have the underdeveloped payment system, because still, as soon as you leave Kiev for 10 kilometers, you can't pay with your credit card in the restaurant. That's true. So far, we have a very weak culture of cashless operations. I do understand why. Nice Ukrainian banks during the latest 3 years made a very intense influence onto the cashless. Unfortunately, a lack. So we have the low literacy in the small towns, which can be explainable and connected with the payment infrastructure. So far, we don't have the proper place to pay, where to pay, so undoubtedly the low paying ability of the population can be the defining one, but still we have it. Of course, we have to find the proper dialogue between the market and the state. The players of the market are trying to communicate with the authorities. So far, it's not on a proper level, in my opinion. And both Verkhovna Rada, the parliament, and the cabinet of ministers are either don't hear or don't understand, and still they have this legislation vacuum for e-commerce. Still, we're having a huge amount of requests and connected with the e-commerce and with the payments, which can make the whole breakthrough in cashless. Undoubtedly, we need to have certain rules involved. For instance, still, if the POS terminal and RO are different systems, of course there will be some of the problems going on and there won't be any growth. Of course, we should greet the competition, having great stakeholders, because everyone to this or that extent know about PayPal story, which still didn't emerge here, because people understood that this is a great hazard and the competitor, but still this is the new condition for new players to emerge here, and we can see that there is a very big reserve to make the proper propaganda of cashless payments among the population, especially among the people who seem not to be a target audience, but we see that people who are older than 50, in fact, by mistake, they are considered to be not the key clients of e-commerce or of the payment services. In fact, those are people who are ready to live online, who are ready to pay to interesting fintech instruments. My father, for instance, he's 72 years and he's a professor and a PhD. He is one of the biggest users of e-commerce and the buyer of internet shops and the client of Nova Poshta. Thank you. This is a wonderful figure, thank you. And you, as an operator of logistics market, is the structure which really takes all of the goods from the online to the offline. The figures is almost the quarter of all of the internet shops which don't have even credit cards. It's really impressive. Nikolai, you're having more than 1,000 orders a month. How do you cope with that? How do you look at the world experience? Well, thank you, Slava, for such nice intro. But lots of questions have already been answered. I'd add a bit. Yes. Really? Everything mentioned that we are lagging behind from the developed markets about 5 times. As for the level of the penetration of technological services into our life, in China, 30% of economy, though we know China as an export-driven country, but still 30% of their economy is connected with the internet, with the technology. So internet, according to their estimations, is the key industry of the Chinese economy, not the export of the goods. So we're working for 10 years at this market. We began when our share was about half of the percent. Now it's about 3 to 4%, and now we see that for 10 years we are trying to make it together up to 20 at least. I think to 20 to 30% we can take it to this indicator, but for that we need to work on the infrastructure. The infrastructure for the traders, for them to sell something online. The infrastructure is logistics, fulfillment, and on the other hand it's payments. On the third hand, it's marketplaces, what we are doing. Those 3 components, the development of those 3 paths, which rather should be rapid, it will provide the growth which is ahead of us. So here, it seems to me that if you do offline business now and don't look at the internet and online as something serious, then you are mistaken. Because the practice, the world practice and the historical practice, it tells us that technology process can't be stopped. It can be slowed down. But if some country reached something, for instance, invented the powder, this powder will be used, gunpowder will be used all over the world. If they invented the paper, this paper will be used all over the world. If there is somewhere 20% and in 5 years it will be 30%, we'll have this indicated to 30%, 50%, and gradually the edge between the fine and mine will be just whipped away. We will believe in both sides, and it will be necessary for us to serve the clients both ways. What can I say about the cashless and the financial infrastructure, which is the main topic of today's discussion? we can see rather contradictory things. On the one hand, banks and payment systems have done a lot for all of us to get the card in our pocket, and we would be able to pay online. So the big share of the payments is coming in the cashless, into the digital type. On the other hand, we can see great percent rates and the commissions, which are higher than 2%. And this is the main factor which slows down the development of cashless economy and payments. On the other hand, Ukraine has the parallel gray side. Those are payments from the card to another card, which is from 0 to 0.5%. They're growing substantially, and they're the substantial share of e-commerce today. So, on the one hand, there are tools with the commission of the rate percent of 0.5, and on the other hand they have 2.5. So this contradiction has to be taken away in the closest future, and to create some of the tools which won't be that costly, which will be convenient for the user. And here where we can see the next push and breakthrough in the penetrating of cashless into our everyday life. Thank you. Nikolai, thank you. I can add several words to my colleagues. We all are singing the same song, as if we're singing the same song, but we are facing the same obstacles and barriers. If we're looking at the positive side with the great opportunities, go online or go be cashless. The basic thesis from me, and this is where I'll support my colleagues, if we take together e-commerce and economies of the world, trillions of the dollars, I don't remember the exact figure, if it would be a separate country, according to the level of GDP, it would be in top 5, if I'm not mistaken, of the biggest countries in the world. So correspondingly, for each business, the basic question is obvious, whether you want to be the part of such economy or you don't want to be one. If you look at the trends of the users, and in our link, all of the business are serving the customers. B2B serves for the business, but still the business create value added for the consumer. The client, the consumer, is online for a long time. He's very mobile. He doesn't perceive any barriers and limits when he or she is trying to find information, to find the service. If we look inside Ukraine, we are having now approximately 900 to 1 million active small and medium enterprises. I won't speak about big ones, but SME is the foundation for any economy. They serve the internal market, they create the service economy. According to the benchmarks of the quantity of SMEs for 1,000 of population, Ukraine is still lagging behind. We don't have enough of the businesses to serve the population. The increase of the profits of the populations, and I sacredly believe that they will increase, the business needs to develop. So the potential of the business is being scaled where if it uses the tools online. Online because you can serve the business working with the logistics not only in your city, and for you, as for the expenses, it's much cheaper. So technological obstacle and the opportunities online, they decrease your expenditure. And they decrease the time which you spend when you scale your business. So knowing the experience of Portemonnaie company, my experience is as follows. The business is lagging behind in comparison with the client for about 2 or 3 years. Now I'm working in the payment sphere, so what we can see now, Portemonnaie can see the client. So in natural open economy, everything is formed by demand. My understanding in Ukraine, both in online and in the payments, we don't have any problems with the demand. Yes, our demand could be sometimes speedy, the amount of contactless cards, the level of protection of those cards is several times better than in the US economy, for instance. We're having 30 million effective cards. Through me, they pay this year for about 3 to 4 million people who are paying online. We can't serve people who are offline. But I'm not the only player at the market. I can understand that this dynamics could be quicker because we need education, we need to tell people about the basic opportunities, but still, this is not the problem of the demand. The second part of any business equation is the supply, what was mentioned by Mykola. If I can pay online, for instance, I don't have cash in my wallet. I have lots of cards and a bit of cash for the cases when I can't pay online. So this is the moment when lots of businesses now don't have online presence, and according to my estimates, only about 30 to 35% have online presence. And B, all those businesses which take online payments which are cashless, this is only about 2 to 3%, how Vyacheslav said. Why isn't it perceived in the business? We have the third element of all this demand-supply system is an ecosystem which gives all of that. Ecosystem consists of two components: the banking system, payment service provider, which provides this payment service and function, which is a logical evolution process. You came online, the business has been developed, the client claims for convenient methods, and the second step is the cash. This is how Nova Poshta is acting, and so on. So the banks and payment service providers, and this second part is regulators. It seems to me that here we're having several points. For business, it's always important the expenses in comparison with the benefits. The expenses are of time and money. Well, money can be measured, time can be measured in money too, but still. I can begin taking online payments, and how much will it cost me? This is where I'd like to mention two simple examples. The first one, for me to serve the new merchant, according to our legislation and financial monitoring, I need to take the whole pile. I won't list the whole list of documents, copy of the passport of the founders, information about the founders, all the documents which should be the original ones. Otherwise, I will have some problems with the financial monitoring. And now the second fact. I'm a cash and online payment service provider. I can give money only exclusively at the banking accounts of the business, of the legal entities and private persons. Just to open those banking accounts in the banks, those people are coming through the identical and sometimes even more complicated verification of the verification. Please tell me, why do I have to duplicate it? If it's a totally transparent payment and you can follow it from my side, from the side of the bank. So, knowing this onboarding and including new business, it takes more than 2 weeks. We are working to make it possible for 1 or 2 days. It's a very simple example, and this is the question for the banking system, for us and for the regulator, how to solve this moment. The second point, as for the primary public offering and fiscalization online and so on, the client is coming to me and saying, I'm paying the communal service. In my understanding, this is the low risk, not that risky payment transaction as for online, but I'm paying, for instance, in KIEF for the house of my parents in Mykola. So the receipts you are giving with online, the communal service won't take it. It wants you to get the tangible paper certificates, otherwise they won't take it into consideration. We try to implement the digital signature which will be acknowledged by the courts, but still it's nonsense. This is the nonsense we need to change in the ecosystem, which won't be able to change without the regulator. So the second example is about the price. I've got a commission which I take for any SME. 2.5% is the expenditure part, which includes lots of factors, the services of the bank and so on. The private person, which is an entrepreneur, this is the simplified tax. This is 5% of the turnover. When I come into the business, he says, I need to get all the documents for a fortnight, for 2 weeks, and then I'll have to pay you 50% of my tax burden. For the potentially service of 2, 5 or 10% of my clients. They are all paying online. They're ready to pay with the cards. This is what Mykola mentioned. We need to work it in the systematical approach. We are working on the quick and high quality service. We're working to make it rapid and to connect the merchant. But the business reacts on the very simple things. It should be simple and quick. It should be profitable, or it should give such business opportunities according to which he will pay off the expenses he has, either in the short-term or long-term perspective. And the next factor, all of the next factors we are having in our economy are very positive. Freight-free agreement, this is the that means that we can sell it to the clients not only in Ukraine. And this is 100% cashless. We have different methods, but cashless is the standard which is compatible with the Western user. Visa-free. Second point. Ukraine last year has become #1 in the European Union, the country, as for the quantity of Ukrainians, the number of Ukrainians who had an official permit to work. Hundreds of thousands of people, more than India and more than any other countries in the world. And just think about the people who came there to work just using visa-free regimen. So the second factor, about half of the trillions of dollars are remittances. So the transfers of the people, of the money people send from abroad to their own countries. So is it important for us as an economy to get additionally 1 to 5 billions of dollars to get to pay for the communal services, to buy the goods? It's critically important. Yesterday I had a flight from Warsaw, and in Uber I had the driver Oleg from Mykolaiv region. We communicated with him. I explained where I work. He moved here officially, and for 1.5 years he was at home only once. And I asked him, how do you transfer the money to your family? And he said, I'm paying 2% to the driver of the bus. So knowing such a potential of the regulator altogether, is it possible to provide a totally simple, accessible, cashless way to put this money in the economy? Of course, lots of people won't have any wishes to pay taxes. Then cashless is not for them. But we are speaking about the new type of economy. We are speaking about the official workers abroad, and they are paying taxes there, so they don't have any problems with the taxation. We need to give them the proper transfer payments service. We don't have the ready solutions for that. They're working actively upon that, but it seems to me that if, well, again, I'm not trying to take any post, but still, if I was looking at the simplifying of any of the cash payment is dramatically more transparent and more important for the economy than the cash itself, because our biggest competitor here is not the post terminal or online, but cash is, because it's cheap, because it's not transparent, because this is how business used to work here. And to sum it up, the demand is over there, and it seems to me that businesses will be ready to move there much quicker if they understand and they will feel the demand. And secondly, if we simplify the time and the expenses to adapt cashless for them. Thank you. I would like to tell about the two layers of the cashless notion which our company faced. The first one is not to have cash in our hands. We had approximately 400 of service centers where we had cashes and where the clients came and paid cash to pay for the services of the communication. It was convenient for them. They got used to that. They could get some consultations why the account is like that and nothing, and the receipt like that. And if sometimes they were turned off because of the payment, because this money was on the account of the company, those services were again working. Of course, it was not profitable for the companies themselves, because the people who were working there had to focus not only on the quality, high quality, and nice service of the clients before the sales, especially for innovation, for the interactive television which we issued recently. They had to focus on the questions of the cash. If the cashier was sick, someone had to take his place. The cashier had to focus not only on the smiling process, but on the speed, and you had to think about primary public offering, about the reports, about the inquisition. So part of the energy, part of the time went for the security and for timeliness of the cash access. We closed all of the 400 cash terminals. Now we have cash automates from several banks, and later on we told to the clients, if you don't want to pay us, pay in the bank, pay online, and so on. This is the first level of cashless. Business should focus on what it's doing on the telecommunication services, not on the cash processing. The next stage is, of course, if they're coming with cash and not giving it to our cashier but putting them into the cash terminal, it's difficult to say whether it's cashless or not, but still, this is the level which we didn't like too. Because, as I mentioned, we are working in the post-pay business. That means that you're using now but paying later. And that means that when the client, for the 25th day or the 35th day of getting an account, is finally coming to your center of service and found the cash terminal and inserted his 50 hryvnia there, it's a bit too late. We want to get the money from the client the moment we're giving him the account. So we began the whole initiative as for popularization of the payment in the internet by the credit card. We began that 1.5 years ago, and if 1.5 years ago the share of the payments by credit cards were less than 5%, for 1.5 years this payment is 15%, so 3 times for 1.5 years, and this percentage is growing. Of course, we had a kind of propaganda of card payments. We were writing about that in the accounts. We said that this is profitable, it's convenient, there is no hidden commission. We included the additional channels of communication. We sent the text and Viber messages. We developed the pop-up windows. 1.5 million of clients online, they had a pop-line window just now, just clicking the button and putting the number of their credit card. We are cooperating with the portemonnaie, by the way, and we are not going to stop there. This is the next level of cashless. Not only to take cash, but to take it as a credit cash and to take it a month before than the client is paying when we're speaking about the retail. So cashless is a very big profit for the business, which allows to focus upon what's important for you. The core relations, that is the telecommunications services, but cashless is only half of the story for me. The first half of the story, which is here in this memorandum written like go online, it's much more, much bigger challenge for the businesses of Ukraine, especially for the big ex-state companies like Ukrtelecom, is because yes, we can include online interface in our company. We can communicate through Facebook, through Viber. We can send messages and send accounts and send certificates and receipts in the Viber. But we are doing that, and we increased twice the share of the applications. So sales we are doing through the internet, not through the real retail. Still, even if you use to the company where 27,000 of employees are working, and which used to be the classic bureaucracy like Ministry of Communications of Ukraine, and before that it used to be Ministry of Communications of the USSR, this company has more than 120 years history. This company will not become more modern. You should be online internally. 27,000 of employees, of technicians, logistics, the servicemen, they need to serve each other like the internal clients, including online. Only in that way you will be sure that if you get the application through the online service from the client, it will be quickly and high competence served. It will get to the closest, the most competent colleague, and this comment will find the necessary amount at the warehouse, the modems, the cable, any product which is necessary for that, which will be ordered in time. All of the functions, the whole back office of the organizations which doesn't see the client face to face, it needs to be provided for the client not to get it, not for 30 or 15 days, but for 1-2 days, and only then online will begin to give effects as an efficiency of the labor, the increase of the profits, the decrease of the expenses, when online transactions won't be only on the client side. This is the simplest, when the rest of organization won't be online. It shouldn't be the black box where everything is boiling and then you have some entry online, and in the month you will have an output which is very weird and incomprehensible. So for me, Go Online is an optimization of the internal processes, when the departments serve each other, how they serve the client online, without the bureaucracy, without papers, without delays. Thank you, Denis. Ilya, you have this similar experience on the telecommunications market. How did it happen at your place? Well, again, I'd like to address both questions of online cashless. It seems to me that speaking what's going on today, you can't ignore what will go on tomorrow, because either you're an individual or you're a company or you're a state. You have all of the rates for so the party is played today. The technology of 2017 in autumn is relevant and really important is when we look at the cash. Of course, you can't ignore cryptocurrencies. We're not only speaking that physical cash is vanishing, the whole material of the money is being changing. If we look at the philosophy aspect, the community is saying, guys, why does the state print the money? Throughout the history, it proves that it finances deficits and wars. So why should we have inflation economy as it is? The pensions we earned must be processing lots of financial brokers, investors and pension funds, only because when you don't do anything, it eats our money, and we have the inflation of the taxation by the state. So the response for the whole community is the alternative. Those are cryptocurrencies, which we can't ignore. If we take the two main, one is Bitcoin and Ethereum, this will be the economy of $1.5 billion. So to look at it separately from the existing context is just impossible. I will name you certain data. For instance, in Lithuania there are physical Bitcoin terminals, and the taxi are taking Bitcoins as the payment. So there is the whole thesis that the physical, hard money, even in the electronic form, are not corresponding to the requirements of the digital economy as it is. The classical example of the society, if some bulb wants to pay for the electricity, it can't do the banking payment. So all for the Internet of Things and for all those things which are changing our country today, the concept of money is obsolete. I was coming here and I was impressed when I saw the coolest innovation in Ukraine. I didn't see it neither on one forum nor the second person forum, but the sign. So forums to mining the cryptocurrency. This is the forum. I was just impressed, because this was the future. Those are the people sitting in the garage and having some of the graphical chips, but this is the real cash. As for the online, it's today. We can't help acknowledging this fact. It's obvious. Two technologies which are changing time and space in the economy. This is the blockchain, first of all, and everything is taken to blockchain now. So for the users level is the database which is decentralized, which is distributed, and where we pay everything there. Nothing is being forgotten, nothing has been changed. The spectrum of the usage of the cryptocurrency decentralized, and any data, passports, about fines, about taxes, details about the ownership of any property. They are written there once and forever, and they are created forever, not by any cloud, not by any database. This is the technology which changes the world. So you can look at about going online, but not about blockchain. So you can't. And the second technology is connected with that, is the interference into the interface of the artificial intelligence. It's not the secret that today artificial intelligence achieved a lot, both in America. AI is taken as a lawyer in the US. They replace the real people in the analysis of precedents and the analysis of constitutional law against some of the contracts. Thanks God that the law system is rather structured, so it's very easy to process it by artificial intelligence, and not to look whether you're an individual or the company or the country, how can I use and which interface I can use in my activities according to the intellect. This is as significant as the online going 20 years ago. I would just go away with the keywords, but I would use the words cryptocurrency, blockchain. Those are the main notions which define the future. Thank you, Ilya. Sergey, it's time to speak for you, because you serve this market. What I would like to say, listening to our colleagues, to my colleagues, you know, I am always saying that our country is not developing thanks to something, but on the contrary to something. If we look at the figures, I will show you a bit. We're really doing a very amazing thing. In fact, the markets of financial services and cashless and so on, according to the observations and according to what's going on here, for 15 years we've done much more than the developed countries which are working with the cards for the recent 50 to 60 years. We've done times and times more. I'm always saying that I'm really proud that I'm the citizen of Ukraine. We are doing some amazing things, but in fact, what is going on and where everything is heading for, we've mentioned the figures that we are changing a bit and we're going in the direction of cashless. So in fact, the breakthrough year was approximately 2010. Before that, we were always speaking that if Ukrainians are using cards, they're using to take cash from the terminals. That was the practice. Sometimes salaries, and you're taking all the money, and that's it. We were always saying that the approximately 6% of transactions are done with the business cards. But for those 7 years, the situation is cardinally changed. As for the transactions, 74% of transactions, according to the to the summarizing of the last quarter, Ukrainians are paying for the services and goods. More than 2/3 is already the payment. We're having a certain custom. In the turnover, of course, it's a bit less. It's only 38%. But still, the figures are getting closer to the developed countries of the world. Well, of course, we are far from Israel, but we have the place to work for. And as I mentioned, 38% of those payments are done online in our country. In fact, Europeans are buying, every fourth European buys and makes the payment online. 60% of all of the transactions which are done online are began with the search of the good through the smartphone. So we just live with our smartphones. I'm looking at the audience and I can only approve those words, because according to statistics we are having, the Ukrainian spends with his smartphone for 4 hours a day. Is it good? Is it bad? But it's our reality. We are just, a smartphone has become part of us. It's not only the center of your news or games, this is a certain financial center, because lots of things are being initiated from the phone. 72% of Ukrainians are ready to purchase something with the help of the cell phones. The cell phone is today, in fact, the center of everything. Besides all of the rest, sometimes it distracts, it calls, sometimes it rings. It's an additional function for our smartphones. What's really important again, 38, the magic figure, expectations that in 2020 all of the B2C relations will be going to online. So almost half of the relationship between the business and the people will be online only. Out of our citizens, 90% of us at least try to buy something online. The situation has changed critically and cardinally. What was mentioned as for the age 50 plus, and we can say even 60 plus. My father is also, I couldn't let him understand when how to use the card, but unfortunately he forgot the cash once. There was the card, and he asked me whether he could do that, and so it was very easy because I didn't need to make this SMS banking, because my own father is the better tester or evangelist of the cashless relationship, because he goes and stimulates the shop saying it is 2017 and you don't take the cards. He puts the goods back and leaves. So this change in the behavior is just wonderful. Coming back to the cell phones, more than of the population of our, well, half of our population is selling from the cell phones. I'll show you the examples. And 40% of us, Ukrainians, are beginning any purchasing experience and relationship with business with a cell phone. We're beginning with the search, but not everything is that well. Besides all of the aspects we've discussed, the legislation, customs and security and so on, there are lots of things which stop people. Online is good, but still there are certain stoppers. So I'm always saying, I'm asked, what's the future? The future is in the simplicity. Look, everything which is going on, especially in the e-commerce world, there are different calculations. Plus one step for a person is minus 60% of conversion. So it's like this triangle, this shell crater, is really impressive. So almost 40% of the users stop the payment process if they need to register, or if they need to do something what they already did. This is the big problem. 97% of the purchasings, because it's not convenient to do that. Those are the different problems which were mentioned by my colleagues. Those are whips and scourges. If you need to register, or if you need any additional step, then it's just thrown away. As for the sales, those are enormous problems. Understanding those aspects, what we are doing as the payment system and on the market of the partners, we need to work a lot about that. The future is in the simplicity, and it's necessary to help people. Why do you have to register the card at every website? You must have faced that. Every new website wants your card to be registered. We showed our digital wallet of MasterPass when it's enough to register any card of any payment system, and any partners who are connected to this wallet, you'll automatically get your cards, so the payment will be in one-click payment. 38 and 97% we try to get away, because we understand it's the problem for the business. We need to simplify it, and the payment, one-click payment, is the stimulus, so we see the real changes in the conversion. The Masterclass is a global wallet. In fact, it's been used in 34 countries, more than by 300,000 shops are connected to those things in Ukraine. We're having more than 2,000 traders who use it, and they give you an opportunity to pay it with the MasterPass. This is the really new experience for the consumer, so we could have a discussion here because of the simplicity and the experience of the people. As for the security of the input of the data, it changes the conversion a lot. According to the examples I've mentioned, and they were mentioned online, the platforms of Portemonnaie, iPay were were connected to MasterPass. We've got a MasterPass which allows us to simplify the system of the transfer from one card to the second card. Because you did that already, you know that it takes about 40 clicks to do that, because you have to input the number of the card, your card, and then the card of the one for whom you're doing that. It's about 40 clicks. The system integrated by MasterPass, you know the card already, so the transfer from card to card can be done in 4 clicks. You've chosen 2 cards, you've made the necessary sum of money, so the payment has gone. The trend which is really needed is social networks, bots, and so on. We have certain developments of the work with MasterPass in Facebook Messenger. The bot of the transfer of money from one card to another, and again several clicks only, and maybe those are the successful things which I hope some of you have tried already. Those are mobile apps which are integrated with the wallet, which really allow to pay for parking, for fuel, for any services in one click. It's really just convenient. If I would sum up, I would say that really the cashless matter, be cashless and go online, is very philosophical. It's very well, we don't have one recipe that we have to do something and it will fly. It's a universal one and overall one. It's the infrastructure, but this is the legislation base in the country, so we need to simplify it, because there are lots of things which was mentioned already. There are lots of things which intersect, which are interconnected, which are done several times. We don't understand why it's done. And cashless things, what's going on through the bank, it really is being traced, it's being controlled, so why do we need to do all of that? As for the changes of behavior, I will name an example which would be rather demonstrative how our perceivance changes, and especially how we perceive the banking payments and contactless cards. Maybe you know Alpha Jazz Festival in Lviv, which we as a payment system served for 5 years. This is the system which is totally cashless. It's contactless, so you can pay it only with contactless cards, with watches, with 5 years ago, when we began the negotiations with the organizers and wanted to show the example how it's working and how it's done, of course, there were lots of blocking factors in documents. It was hard to implement and so on. What will be the behavior? How will the barman deal with that? There were attempts to pay with cash and so on. 5 years passed. This year, during the last day of the festival, there was the virus, Petya.a, the virus which unfortunately made out of order part of our infrastructural partners, and in fact the organizers even had the question whether they should include and come back to cash for the last 5 years. Of course, they were trying to find the proper way to do that. And surprisingly, the main partner came, with whom we tried to convince, and he had an argument why we should use cash. Now his argument was, do whatever you want, how you want, but I don't want to see cash at the ground. This was the argument, because he says, my bartenders will have the piles of cash, it is uncontrolled traffic, it's cheap, it's not secure, and so on. For us, it's really demonstrative how the business is changing. Yes, there is certain price of these services, there are certain taxes, but the bright side of this force is still bright. So as a result, when you try to work with that, there are certain arguments in that. Thank you, Sergey. Thank you. Wonderful products for all of the participants of the panel discussion to make a business better, and a nice story how the business and the consumers are ready to use those services. We've got some time, so I'd like to give the microphone to the audience. I'm sure there are questions, so please. I'd like to thank the speakers. There were perfect reports. So I'm the generation of your parents. That's why I'll share my experience. In 1993, a small group of enthusiasts created the state program of e-control on the goods of international. Our state, and I was very surprised, in 1994 published the national state program. So the small group of enthusiasts in 1993, where I had happiness to be included, they had the state program of e-control on the goods and money turnover. It was adopted by our state, and in 1994 this program was adopted. Since 1994 till 2000 it's been working, this program. There was state funding for the Scientific Research Institute of the problems of mechanics at the KIEF Polytechnic Institute. There were the leading specialists, and the factory of Electromarsh was the participant of this process. So the global aim of the state program was the creation of a fintech program, the control of the washing lots of money. This is the system of FBI in the United States of America. 50 states, they try to control the drug traffic. So when the funding was over, the system was over, and the State Commission and the control of the cash terminals. So those systems were already the systems of cash registers, cash drawers machines. So I had to protect it in front of the National Tax Inspection of Ukraine, the technology and the sales, the express sales and the system of the aviator transportation. There was the huge work done. So maybe, gentlemen, let's come back to those times and just remember the past times. Let's conjoin our efforts. Let's create the working group. Let's make the whole council and use ministries and institutions, and let's create the state program, because the things you're saying is really cool. Now our time, in the framework of the same program, we, together with the governance, we tried to implement several approaches, the cards with chips and so on. So what did you do to change the situation in the country with the regulator, right? Maybe someone will answer. Ilya has done a lot in his country, how to communicate with the state. Yes, I will share my experience, which was rather positive in Lithuania. A small story about 3-4 years ago, I was communicating with Tim Draper, the main investor of cryptocurrencies, and they were looking at the Baltic countries as very progressive grounds because their roots in Estonia, so it's connected not only personally but professionally. So we looked at several precise investments in Lithuania, which begins with an external influence of in the country is to Google. After the Google, he said, guys, full stop, nothing will happen, because the first 10 articles I'm finding are the words of your central bank boss ideas that the central bank recommends to delay any contacts with cryptocurrencies. That's it, full stop. I'm not coming to you at all. That's it. So after communicating with the state officials, the financial ministries and the central bank, we understood that this problem is just misunderstanding on the level of the understanding of the state, cryptocurrency, the drugs and the hostages, and that's it. We can't expect for that, because this is the functions that we face the necessity of the educational activities, just to understand the state and to make the state understand what the new opportunities are. That's why we chose the tools as a conference. We gathered the biggest conference on bitcoins in Lithuania as a dialogue format between all of the state officials, the state, the entrepreneurs, the business, the regulators, and so on. So about half a year there was certain prepares and massive bulks by the media. We had certain ideas what the cryptocurrency is with Lithuania and the reviews. It was a very precise dialogue as the end. So half a year passed and the position of central bank changed from the ban and punish to, guys, we are opening the the new format of the innovation in the state, which is called the play pit or the sandbox. So this sandbox has the direct control of the central bank, even of the startup, even if you're having only 3 people there. Once a month you're having different meetings, and the startup is coming how they're doing that, and in exchange the central bank doesn't claim any other money licenses and allows to move much quicker for the startup in the gray undefined territories than it would be theoretically possible in the legislation way. So this program is already issued, and our 3 companies are taking part in that this autumn up till the middle of 2018. I'm just saying that to be proactive and to choose the proper tool, then you can really to have the proper and efficient dialogue with the state in this way. And one of the aims of this panel discussion is to name this problem, to give it a notion, to discuss it with the experts which represent this market and with you. Any other questions, please? Thank you so much for this panel discussion. I consider that for us to have the cashless offline, when the terminals have to work. So using this opportunity, I'd like to speak to Vyacheslav. I am the client of Nova Poshta, and in the department number 20, the terminal is never working. We even worked the whole have the whole scheme with the loader, Nikolai. So just to say, just please make the terminal work. It would be much easier to work with it. You see, there are certain questions, and I have the question to Ilya. We mentioned about the cryptocurrencies. I have the question now. My attitude towards the cryptocurrencies. So after the dot-coms, there are certain problems. What will happen with the cryptocurrency? So here at our forum, we showed the picture that the same street of New York where they had horses, and in 20 years the streets is full of cars, but they didn't have a single carriage. But everybody forgot that in 20 years there were lots of investors who spent enormous money to develop steam engines in Ukraine. There was the Yampol factory in Ukraine which produced the wonderful steam engines which were all over the world. I have a question for you. Do you consider the cryptocurrency is something as a result, this is the future which is here, or this is a transit period of the steam engines? Whatever we speak, everything is coming to cryptocurrency. It's really cool. Yes, I think this is the material in the formation process. Like 20 years ago, in fact, there were certain ideas of social networks, of all the rest. We can see it live now. The same is going on with cryptocurrencies. The first thing, it's really working. This is the economy which is already can't be ignored at all. Whether the state wants it or not, it will happen. And it seems to me, I heard the opinion that on the level of state we should include it. I can be mistaken, but innovation is not the state affair. I don't want the state to be innovated. The internet as it is, the email emerged from the bottom. So if the state, with all the legislation and information regulations, was trying to create the internet from above, it won't be the internet we know. And also I can see the same with the cryptocurrencies. So yes, this is the materials in the formation process. Those who will understand the profits quicker and will understand that and do the proper things, they will get the totally surreal profits. And the keyword, one more to this audience, which is of summer 2017, this is ICO, initial coin offering. This is the financing of the whole companies through the non-stock exchange with cryptocurrencies. This is very fashionable, and they have tens of billions of dollars. So the people who will be rather quick to use this, they will have enormous profits. And there is time for one more question now. Okay. Then, if the experts have anything to add now to our topic, we've got several minutes more to wrap up this discussion. Can I share my personal observation? As you said about the Vasya, the loader, I was flying UIA, Ukrainian Airlines, and I wanted to buy the service for 60 euro, and as a result, my credit card was not working because unfortunately they said that the maximum payment is 1,600 hryvnia. So I had to find a second credit card and conjoin them, and that's how I could pay, only with 2 credit cards. It's interesting why it's that like that. Who knows the reason why Ukrainian Airlines Why you can't pay 1,600 from the credit card? It doesn't take 1,600, it takes only 1,599. Does anybody know the answer? I think this is a technical question. This is the question of the risk management of the bank whose terminal is at the airlines. Why 1,600? Well, maybe, unfortunately, we had the devaluation which was quicker than the bank had a possibility to look through the risk policy. What's the risk? I'm sorry. In fact, this is the question of the risks. But what's the risk? What 1,601 is something? Yes, this is the question to the bank. Why 1,600 exactly? I can't. Maybe offline terminal. I was hoping that someone knows. I'd like to add and to answer simultaneously at your question about the loader caller. All of those questions, we are forgetting that always in the whole line of those science fiction, fantastic fintech things we're speaking about, there are always banks there left. So both in the department number 20 and in UIA, there were definitely the banks which were regulated and who are owners of this post terminal, and also the owner of the post terminals in UIA. There was certain bank. This was the problem and the fundamental problem. Whenever we go, there is the stage of banks which are working really very bad without giving services, and they're generating this lack of services. So the regulations and whatever they say, in this case, when we have the real person who wants to spend money, there is the company who wants to take this money. Because of some of the commas in the regulations, it's not happening. It's important to solve it then. Yes, of course, those terminals are they belong to the banks and they generate those problems. Maybe I should add a bit. I have the hypothesis that you were trying to pay in the air, in the airplane, so the terminal was working offline only. In the offline, you can't check the money, but the PIN code, so it's with the PIN code is being authorized. This is the risk policy of the bank. I can't comment on that later, but I agree with Vyacheslav. Yes, we're always having certain links and certain lines in the banking system, and there is the way to optimize service of the client. So coming back to your first question, I do believe in specialization. So the round tables is perfect, but if I deal with the payment function, we're taking part in all of the round tables, but my task is to simplify it as much as possible, and I've got loads of work, believe me. Mykola told about his experience. This is not a question to the state. The country has to do its own thing and business has to do its own thing. And ideally, the state mustn't interfere. This is the basic principle. What Sergei says, not thanks to, but on the contrary. The whole development is not on the cashless of the whole economy, is that there is the demand and there is supply. And there are certain obstacles, technological regulations, barriers, which just take it. The innovations help to stimulate it. This is where I support Ilya. The regulator, if he takes away the obstacles and doesn't interfere, believe me, the economy, I do believe for 45 million of population, is the last emerging market in Europe. So there are not a single economy in Europe with such a great potential for growth. We don't implement it, we don't make it happen, but if everyone tries to implement this moment, everything will be okay. I can't implement a moment for the regulator. Everything I can do is for you to have an opportunity, for instance, for Ilya to pay with his card and for me to pay for any service. One-click transaction. And for him to have the wish to come back to my place again. If I do that, I will win. If I don't do that, my business will just perish. And the regulations can help me and simplify those actions, but I do agree that this is one of the points we should work upon, and I don't want to work about that. I have some different tasks. Thank you so much, dear experts, for such openness, for the quality reports. for the highlighting of this topic. We can see that the consumers are ready, the business wants it to be, the business is ready to share information, the business is ready to meet and to tell about their problems, to show how we can help each other. For the simplification of the regulatory functions would be one of the questions which would be really speed up both the transition to online and the cashless in our country, and it would lead our country to the new efficient results and our economy to the growth which could happen. Thank you so much.